Okay. All right.
Hello, we're calling the meeting for the Comprehensive Master Plan Advisory Committee meeting to order today, May 8th at 1 p.m. We are official. Okay. Sorry for the lateness of it, but I did send out the April meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review it? And are there any comments, changes, edits? Good. Nonverbal is good at this particular point. All right. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Diane. A second?
Second. Rollins.
Roland, okay, great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good. So we have the meeting minutes from last time approved. And then as far as the agenda, I'd seen some comments about wanting to move item number 8 up, and the only reason why it's item number 8 is because it's the only thing we have under new business. We typically do old business before new business. That is the only reason. So yes, I didn't think that the others were going to take all that much time. I was thinking that that probably where we'd focus our attention today. Any other changes, additions, comments on the agenda?
I have one question.
Sure, Tom.
This is in regard to our rolling over our membership on the committees. The 3 of us have had 1-year membership, and then we're supposed to appoint new committee officers, and then the board approves it sometime. So what's the timetable for that?
The timetable is that they're trying to be more consistent, and they let us know at the beginning of the year, and I thought I sent an email out to y'all that even though this committee was started in April, and you would think a year would be in April, they have shifted it so that they want to approve the annual cycle to be at the June board meeting. So technically speaking, that'll be when the 1-year cycles will end. Okay,
so theoretically, we should take care of all of that at our next meeting.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, and that's assuming, I'll have one-on-one conversations with those who have the 1-year terms and figure out whether or not we have an opening or if somebody is going to renew.
Okay, very good.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, you're muted, Clint. I can see your mouth moving, but unmute Clint.
Tell Clint how to take himself off mute.
All right.
Got it.
Got it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to check the mic.
All right. Okay. All right. So are we okay with the agenda?
Yes.
And we can go through the process again.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve. Okay. That's a first, and then a second would come from?
Second.
Okay. Clint, I heard your voice first. All approved? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so approved. Okay, chairperson comments. The primary thing that I wanted to let you know is, first of all, I did do the presentation to the board on right after our last meeting, and so I really wanted to thank all of y'all for your contributions in helping putting together the report. All the feedback that I got was positive. Most people, the most common feedback that I got was it was one of the best reports that they had ever written. So that is nice. Several of them loved the level of detail. There were a few questions regarding why some information was not covered, and it was simply a matter of prioritizations. I mean, this is supposed to be a very long-term plan, so assuming that we have touched absolutely everything in this year is unrealistic. It's not. That's just not a way that long-term plan is supposed to go. Hopefully this is something that they will continue to use as we move forward with whatever it goes. You may have also been aware that there have been a couple of board meetings. There was one special meeting and one working session since our last meeting of the board. And at this week's working session, they did talk about the CMP, and both the CMP as well as the CMP-AC was on the agenda. They tabled the CMP-AC because they needed to make a decision, have discussions on the CMP first. So having said that, they had a dialogue that went back and forth a little bit, and in the special meeting, they put a motion on the table and then postponed it, any action on it, that would basically take the entire CMP off the table and anything associated with it. And then it became clear that that was probably not the direction that we needed to go into. The revised workshop version of it was acknowledging that there are some portions of the CMP that were operational in nature and needed to continue, and there are other aspects like the town center that were things that weren't going to move forward and did not need to be included in any future plan. The other comment that they made was that they really didn't think, well, there's two other comments that came to the table, both of which we've heard before. The first one was that a 20 to 30 year plan was something that was hard to get your hands around, and they really wanted to focus in on having a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. And the second one is that just the acronym of CMP has become a 4-letter word, and it is just a challenge to get any additional support or buy-in of that because of just the acronym.
Clint,
So
somebody. Clint is waving at somebody.
I'm
Okay.
waving it. Nikki.
I didn't see you, sorry.
Okay, for the purpose of the record, would you go back and explain that it was, because I think this is what you meant to say, was that it was the old board before the new board, the old board that you made our presentation to, and the old board appreciated our work and said it was some of the best they'd ever seen. Is that correct?
That is correct. We did the presentation at the April board meeting, and following the April board meeting, the new board members were seated.
Right. So the new board members of what has been known as Lloyd and his show, they had no comment on our work.
Other than, I can only go by what I heard in the video meetings that have since. I think that they acknowledged that they had received it. Whether or not they have read it, I have not talked to any of them individually to find that out. I would hope that they had.
And in their motion in that first working session, the motion was to dissolve the CMP, correct?
Well, they wanted to, I think the word they used was rescind, but yes, basically take it all away, not realizing how much of it is operational work.
Right. And has there been any response to the letter that we sent to them where we would help them understand what all was in the CMP?
I did receive 2 responses. One was that any new plan that we came up would have those relevant pieces part of it, and another one said that they would consider it for further review.
But there hadn't been any request for a meeting with any of us or any further discussion outside of that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would, since we do have the final report for our annual report, for the 2020 to the board, I would like to attach that to these meeting minutes so that we have it as an archive document. And
Do you need a motion?
If I may,
yes,
so the actual wording of the motion is to rescind, repeal, and annul. Those were the exact words.
okay. That was in the original special meeting, and then again, the working session wasn't designed to make any decisions. It was literally to have an open the discussion. So I'm sure this is going to be coming on the table again. I would hope that as an advisory committee, if there was actions that and this was going to move forward or not, that as an advisory committee we would be called upon to assist. But I haven't heard anything yet. Okay, so Clint, you were asking if we needed a motion to attach this to the minutes, and I don't think that's true. Stephanie, do we need a motion?
I don't think you need a motion.
Okay, so we'll just attach it. So good catch. All right, that's all I had. Stephanie, you have anything?
I don't really have anything new. Tucker, I was texting with Tucker a second ago. He's, I thought was appointed our kind of interim liaison, but he's not going to be on the call today. So just so you know, we won't have board committee member representation today. But no, I don't really have anything else. I think you covered it pretty well, what has transpired with the board. Of course, they met again this week on Wednesday and further discussed the plan as well as protective covenants. And what I got from that was that they were considering a finance and planning committee.
Right.
And maybe potentially this group would morph into this planning committee. I don't know. It's been their practice so far to reach out to the people that were, like in finance, for example, people that were already committed or had already been working on finance, to invite them to participate in the new committee, the new makeup of a committee. So I would hope that you and all of us would be called upon to participate. If in fact a planning committee.
Can I update you on that?
Sure.
Sure, Tom.
Okay, I did go through an interview for the new Finance and Planning Committee. I won't know personally whether I've been selected until the May 20th board meeting, where they actually would announce, committee membership. There is a couple of paragraphs in the charter referencing planning. I asked them specifically about the breadth of the paragraphs because I thought it was pretty cryptic, and after reading it a bunch of times, it was, to me, leaning kind of heavily toward the financial planning 3 to 5 year plan. It specifically says 3 to 5 year plans. And they said their thinking really was something more broad than simply a financial plan. So they definitely left the door open for a more broad-based plan, something along the lines of strategic plan. And see, I look at the CMP as, it has a pretty heavy development dose to it. And a strategic plan probably would incorporate development as one of the bases of the strategic plan. So other than the Finance and Planning Committee doesn't have anything on its plate right now because it doesn't exist, but it's pretty clear that there are a jillion things to do. And I don't know when or where they would actually get around to the planning aspect of it, as opposed to some point of view that right now we have some pretty, the village has some pretty awesome challenges with respect to just plain old financial matters. So I would say that at this time, it would be reasonable to look at the charter and say that, yes, it could include a strategic plan. It could include things that would include development strategy with that 3 to 5 year outlook attached to it. But when and where, when we'll get to whatever our priorities are, I have no idea. And again, May 20th for me is the magic date when they announce the members of the committee.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, the charter for that particular committee has not even been approved yet, has it?
It was approved in the first special meeting.
Okay, because
the version I saw had more editorial edits. So even the version that I saw was not the one that was approved.
Well, it's not on the committee page as an official committee yet, and that was obviously where I looked to see the charter, to see how much of planning was involved in that. So until that exists, then we don't know. My assumption is that
Right.
strategic planning will fall under that committee, that is the intent, but I have not been able to view the charter to see if that's true.
But I mean, in response to a direct question from me, they definitely left the door open for what you just said. So at this
Okay.
point, I think we can proceed with, that's what's in their heads.
Well, got to get it on paper.
Yes, I agree with that.
All right. Anything else, Stephanie?
No, not really. Nothing that you guys don't already know.
Stephanie, did you say someone from the board was in theory appointed as member
Yeah.
of
Tucker Omohundro is just as he's the ACC board committee person. And
Per our charter.
per the charter, that same person represents this committee as well.
Okay,
So it would be Tucker.
so he may not know it.
No, he does. He just
Okay.
couldn't make it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So on with the agenda. I think I pretty much gave you the information regarding the annual report to the board. Was there any specific questions about that any of y'all had? Okay. So, wow, that 10 minutes went awfully darn fast. Let's go ahead to item number 7. We have been trying for several months now to get this on the agenda, the work that Tom and Ray have done regarding the prioritization evaluation. Who's going to take the lead on that one?
I could do that. I sent out an email last night, and probably I sent one out the month before, and I sent one out the month before. But has everybody had a chance? Well, everybody has had a chance to look at it. I don't know if you've actually looked at it or not, but it basically just summarizes the amenity prioritization tool that's in the CMP on page 305. It's basically a big old checklist with yes and no answers. If you say yes, you get points. If you say no, you don't get points. You add up all the points, and off the top of my head, out of a maximum of say 140 points, if you score something like 100, then it's a high priority item, and so on and so forth. The tool itself has 2 sections, one for a new amenity, and for example, I think people would think that the pool and the pickleball courts were new amenities, and then amenity upgrades. And as for instance, you might think of the Balboa Club, what they're going through now could be considered an upgrade. So there are historical and live uses for the tool. And we came up, after looking at the tool, we came up with a bunch of recommendations, which I summarized in the email last week. And the recommendations in brief are the CM, we would recommend that representatives of staff and the CMP get together and look at the line items in detail, because they may be vague and they may be subject to interpretation. A yes or no answer to me isn't always clear, and there is always some possibility for some degree of bias to sneak in there. I think we had a lot of discussion, certainly Ray and I did, about how the tool fits into the process of the staff going to the board and requesting for $500,000 or $1 million or whatever the project is going to cost. And that would impact how the tool is used and what kind of questions would be present in the tool. I think Ray and I both felt it was pretty reasonable to expect a third-party review, particularly because, to me, questions were vague. So Stephanie had provided some examples, and definitely I had some questions regarding some of the yes answers where I would have thought the answer would be no, which dovetails into the next recommendation is reviewing prior amenity prioritization tools to see what you can learn from it. Those are the recommendations. And Ray, do you have anything that you want to?
Well, yeah, I think one of the pieces that we were adding to it, you may have covered it a little bit here in what you just said, but was to have, I think it was actually your suggestion to have the CMPAC be the nonpartisan board that would review some of these prioritization requests to make certain that, I think an example that I used, if I was going to put one together for a gun range on the property, it would be the most flowery prioritization tool use that you've ever seen, because it might be something that I want to have. Or if somebody wanted to have a dog park on the east side, it would be a very flowery one. So having a group to review it to make certain that the answers are all accurate would be an important piece. And you and I and Stephanie met in Stephanie's office, and she showed us a few ways that that's already in place.
Good. All right.
So
Anything
yeah, at this point, basically, I think if they've done the review and want to make those recommendations, then it would have to be in form of motion.
Okay.
So I think Tom would probably need to make a motion to.
Well, before that, I mean, is there any discussion that people want to initiate?
Only that going back to the very beginning when we were taking a look at all of the tools, is that our community, our community, the committees, the board, staff, everyone, our ability to make good decisions is based on the quality of the decision-making tools that we use. So if there is some quality issues in terms of is this or is this not a good tool to use to help us make the decision, then improving that would be where we'd want to go, to make them as best as we can to improve the overall decision making.
I think that's true. And I mean, and knowing that it is just one tool in our tool belt, right? It's just one tool in our tool chest that we're going to use when we actually put together a request for funding for some large capital project. I mean, it is just one component of a much larger package.
Right. I mean, it is, and like I said, it's just one piece of an overall request for funding.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no discussion, then I make a motion that we approve the report and recommendations as written.
Do we hear a second?
Ray, you were actually, you were the person working with Tom. Did you want to second it?
Oh, sure, I'll second it. I mean, I wasn't sure if that
There you
was.
go.
Yeah, I'll second it.
I mean, I could, but I thought it'd be nice if you did. You did all the work. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
What, I do have a question though.
You do have a question. Okay, Pam?
Where do the recommendations go? Now that they've created these recommendations, are they going to be like the marketing subcommittee recommendations that go into the ether space out there, or are they actually going to be going somewhere and be worked on?
And the website recommendation from February 14th that we never heard back on.
These
What's
recommendations
going to happen with these recommendations?
These recommendations will go to me, and since this is something I do, I take this and fulfill the request. I will just comment real quickly on your website. I'm not going to comment on the marketing thing because that's been beaten to death, I think. But the website is in process. So with the hiring of the sales agency and the upgrades to the website, they are working on getting your recommendations in place.
It would be really helpful if we, since we go to the work to create these recommendations and like Tom and Ray put in work, if they're going to be worked on, it'd be really considerate, for one thing, as well as beneficial, if we got reports on the status of what they're doing with the recommendations. The website, okay, you're working on it. What is the status?
Why don't we, Nikki, why don't we, assuming that this committee still exists next month, why don't we add that as an agenda item?
Okay.
And update on prior recommendations. And that way we'll just do a monthly update. We'll become prepared with updates so the committee stand abreast of.
Would this include all motions? I think that everything that we've done has been in the form of a motion, correct?
I think if it's something that's outstanding, if there's work that has been recommended that's outstanding and has yet to be fulfilled or completed, then I think it remains kind of in that old business category
Okay.
in a way. So, even though the committee's done the work and made the recommendation, it's not old business for you to continue to do something, but it's not completed on the staff side yet. And again, there are always, the completion may be that the committee made the recommendation and that it didn't go anywhere. I mean, that it does happen. Committees make recommendations at times and the staff chooses not to do it, or a board chooses not to do it. So, but you would need to know that. The answer is you still need to know, yes, it was brought before a staff group, whoever that may be, and they chose not to proceed with that recommendation for XYZ reason. So,
Or it could be just simply not now. It's just,
correct.
it's simply a matter of priorities. It's not like we don't have anything else
That's
to
right.
do.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Okay, a couple of points of clarification that I would need. Okay, first of all, we also, I believe, did the same thing with the growth prioritization tool, although I think we all agree that that had a much, much lower priority. But I think it would behoove us to compile a list, but I think it's a very short list, of all the recommendations that we as a committee have made. And then I think we said it's basically Stephanie's job to give us the updates on the status of all of those things. Is that where we're at?
Or whoever the relevant person is, but a lot of times, since she's our conduit to the staff, and then now Tucker being our conduit to the board, we can get updates as appropriate, is what I'm thinking. Stephanie,
Okay.
your thoughts?
That's exactly what I would say. Yes. So
Okay.
even if it's a recommendation that's moving past into marketing, for an example, my job would be to bring back to you information from the marketing group. Not
Okay.
necessarily bringing the marketing team into our meeting or bringing a recreation team or golf team or anybody else, but for me to go seek that information out and bring it back to you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
Good.
Can I ask a question?
What's missing is then a list of all the recommendations.
I've basically got that, but I can consolidate it into a spreadsheet fairly easily.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Roland had a question.
Yeah,
Roland?
if there's going to be a physical change to the document, in other words, the text of these tools, they're part of the document. And it seems to me, since it's a governing document right now,
Uh-oh.
Did we? Rollin?
We lost
Yes.
you, Roland.
okay, it seemed to me that since any textual change would have to be approved by the board. I just got a thing that says my internet connection is unstable.
That
Well,
happens.
I guess you can hear me.
Yes.
So since it's a governing document, any change to the text or the plan itself would have to be approved by the board, correct?
That is true. That's true. So right now, all we're doing is the recommendation is to go back through and reevaluate it. So we haven't made a change to the tool yet. But when we do, when we come to an agreement on what that change would look like, then yes, the board would have to approve that change.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any others? Then on to the next new business. We have item number 8, the salvaging of key elements. The handwriting is on the wall that the CMP as we know it is going to go away. And what that means and how that will take place is unclear at the time. We don't have all the guidance yet for or from the board. However, since we're the team that has the most in-depth knowledge of the CMP document, I believe that there are elements that we have agreed upon that do not have support and probably will not be happening in the new version or a new plan, whatever the case may be. But there are things that should. And so wanted to open up the conversation to get feedback and your thoughts from all of you in terms of what we would.
I've got it, Moody.
I've got to go and pick up the arrangement.
Okay, I'm not sure whose background. Anyway, so the intent would be that we would need to go ahead and see if we can consolidate a list and be prepared that if the board does come to us and say, okay, what elements do we need to keep, then we can make that list. Roland, I see your hand.
I think your message to the board is pretty much a definition of that, isn't it?
The message last week?
Yeah, the email or whatever you sent to them. Yeah.
Well, all I said in that one was that if you were going to discuss the CMP or the CMPAC as advisory committee, it would seem logical that they'd want to engage us. But
Well, you had a laundry list of something in one of your emails, didn't you?
Yeah, the first one. The
First one.
our first one, yes.
Yeah, the first one.
Okay.
I mean, is that pretty much what we recommended? It seems to me it is. What you just said.
Hold on. Let me pull that up real quick. I've slipped since then. I know I kept it this report to the board. Let's sort by date.
April 24th. I'm sorry.
Okay, I don't have that immediately available to me. I know I made a copy of it, of that email for my records, but I am not able to put my fingers on it right this second. So for whatever.
Roland said it was April 24th.
Okay.
That's when I sent a message that said, well done. Yeah, it's April 24th.
I can share my screen and you guys can see it if you'd like.
If you already have it, that'd be great.
Can you see that?
There it is.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, this says the broad categories in terms of what an explanation of some of the areas, but it doesn't really have a specific things. Like, for example, implementation tables. We've done some significant work on that in order to make it more of a tool that can be used for tracking things. I think that from that point of view, that would be one recommendation that we'd have moving forward in terms of that's useful. As a tool, it's useful. But there's also information, O&M tables, that's built into the financial reports and budgeting. So that obviously is a piece that I think would go. But is there any specific areas or pieces? Wayfinding came up in the meeting on this week in terms of we don't have consistency in signage, and there was some dialogue about road maintenance as well. So I was thinking more specific items like that versus the generalities of saying 13% of the plan focuses on infrastructure and maintenance and another 15% on budget and finance. Is there anything specifically that we want to say, whatever plan you have for the next 1, 3, 5 years, the CMP has the following specific recommendations that we want to go by recommendations or by topic? I'm open here.
You know, if you, am I being muted? No. You might consider even just working through the table of contents. So when you really look at, just like section 3, for example, which is a big hunk of the document. I mean, that's where you have governance, and you have budget and finance, you have economic development and marketing, amenities and recreation, health and education, public safety, zoning and aesthetics, utilities, infrastructure, and transportation. I mean, I think if you were to say like those categories are categories we believe to be of value to the community, in whatever content, however the content evolves, those topics, the specific areas of interest should remain a part of whatever strategic plan evolves. Maybe you look at it from a table of contents perspective, I guess is what I'm saying, to get the subject matter of the meat of the document
Okay.
in whatever comes forward.
I think section 3 is probably, if we're going to do it by table of contents, that would be the one area where we probably would want to make a recommendation. Introduction, I don't know if that would have value. Okay, I see Diane's hand.
Yes, I was up. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was also thinking after that section of the document, there's a section 6, I believe, which was O&M.
Hmm.
Do I have that correctly?
That's true.
And
Yes,
then
that's good.
section 7 had some significant information about service gaps. And I believe, Pam, one of those was relative to the internet, was it not? Am I saying that correctly?
I see a
Okay.
nod. Yes.
Yeah,
It
and
is.
just in general, the service gaps were intended to evolve. I mean, as we understand, as time goes on, we learn where we have gaps that we aren't competitive, or we aren't able to provide the services that we would like for our community or our members. So that service gap section today may be different tomorrow, maybe different a year from now. So again, it's a topic that whatever plan we evolve into makes sense to keep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because basically we lifted the implementation tables that were static within the CMP, extracted those to an Excel spreadsheet. We have almost 300 items in there, many of which deal with the short term of the village. And I believe that is also true when we look at the section called O&M and the section that was a service gap, those
Mhm.
three.
Mm-hmm.
And
So maybe that's a recommendation.
yes, because I believe if I heard correctly on one, and it's unfortunate that the board did not see it possible for one of the board members to be here today, but I thought I heard that there was a definite inclination to retain the implementation tables and just strip out anything that was not specifically maintenance or that kind of thing. There were
Operations.
operations, yeah, there were specific words that were used,
Mhm.
but there was no reference to those last 2 chapters or sections, which I also think are valuable to our board and the staff going forward.
Mm-hmm. I'm got the CMP here too. The service gaps that are specifically called out are broadband, transportation, grocery, healthcare, lodging, and alternate energy. So none of those are problems that are going to get solved yesterday. They're going to take some time, but that doesn't mean we don't need to have them on the radar. So,
Correct.
okay. What do y'all think about that approach, making a recommendation that of the CMP, if we use the table of contents, focusing in on section 3, which has the 9 core areas, broad areas of places to focus, and then the implementation tables of section 5, the O&M tables, section 6, and the service gaps of section 7.
I mean, I think it's a good place to start. It just seems like it's a good place to start the conversation. And again, I think the content within those sections might change, but the headlines remain. You need a strategy around those things, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't like the strategy that's outlined in this book, then write a strategy that makes some sense to whoever the writer is and whoever the board is at that moment. So,
Okay.
Roland?
Under section 5, the prioritization tools have some value as well.
I agree.
Okay. Yes, all of section.
I don't know about the development options,
Yeah,
but
okay. Yeah, but the tables and the tools of that section, I think that would be a good call too. Thank you. Sorry, Roland, we interrupted.
No problem. So what we listed basically leaves out development and real estate related stuff. And that's the main objection of a number of board members that are pushing very hard to get rid of it. So what we've got left with is the non-development stuff, which I don't see how they can argue with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how anybody can argue with it, but there's a lot of things I don't see.
Mm-hmm. There are still some references to the town center concept, but some of those town center concepts focus around, for example, Coronado Center. That, what could we do there? What could we do for Carmona? What could we do around the Woodlands? So, that to me is taking a look at existing and seeing what we can, focusing in on that area without necessarily, if they want to do new development sometime, then that's up to them, but they can take it or leave it. None of this is going to, I think it's most important that we have the category so that we could at least prioritize and recognize that a little work has to be done on all of these areas. We can't just ignore one wholly, because eventually it's going to become in crisis mode and will have to be dealt with.
I think part of the challenge is that given the responses, I think Tucker responded and maybe Diana responded to your message with pretty curt responses. And it felt to me as if the responses were, don't bother us, we'll handle this. And so I'm wondering if our approach could be different, could be better, so that instead of saying, hey, we're the CMPAC, we've been here for a year, we know what we're doing, this is what we think you should be doing, that we take kind of a more conciliatory approach that basically says, hey, we've been working on this for quite a while and we'd be glad to help you in any way that we can, because we know this is going to be an onerous task for you. And if we could shorten or help minimize what you have to do, then we would be more than happy to do that. But I think something closer to that approach, instead of we're so smart, look what we've done, and this is what you need to do. I don't know. I'm just not seeing a good response to that.
No, and I agree with you that we probably need to open the door, not close the door. I would like to open the door, because I think after a year of this, we do have, at a minimum, if they ask us a question about does the CMP contain X, we're in a much better position because of our familiarity to say, I can look that for you because I know pretty much where to find that, versus them hunting. I think that it would be a way that they could save some time. We'll have to see. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to make the call. They are one of our stakeholders, as is the staff, as is the property owner. So we will go in the direction that they want at this particular point. But it does seem clear that the CMP as we know it may not be long-lived. So, but I think everybody's still in agreement that we need a plan. It's just a matter of what form that plan takes. Roland?
I think the offer to help, like was just mentioned, is a very good opening. But I think if we don't at least list the things we believe ought to be considered as having value, then we'll get the same responses we got before. And, don't bother us, we'll come to you if we feel like it.
Mm-hmm. Well, as Diane mentioned in the last working session, is that they're just being inundated by a overwhelming number of emails. So we also have to appreciate that this is just one more thing that's on their plate and one more email that they have to address. I don't think it should stop us from making the request, but I don't know when they're going to get back to us. Clint?
I disagree with Pam. I think we made a very reasonable notice to them. I don't think we told them in the ways that she paraphrased it. Their response is very clear. They all three of them, four of them, all campaigned that they were going to remove the CMP. And in fact, at least one or two of them said that they have never even served on a village committee because, quote unquote, it's not worth their time. There's not much you can do with people that have that attitude.
They're on the board, and we will, I think that as they get into the information and see how complex this is, that maybe they will have a potential different opinion. We don't know, but this is where we are right now, and I think that would just be good for us to get a little ahead so that we can be prepared that if and when a request comes to us regarding the CMP, we already have a response and we can get back to them in a timely manner.
I'll go back to what Ray and I both said before. We're both salespeople. We're both marketing people. We sell to people, or at least I used to. I used to sell to people all the time. I sold multi-million-dollar equipment. So I think we have some experience with how to approach people to get to a yes. And so my suggestion stands that we're telling them, we're not asking them. We are coming at it from our perspective, not their perspective. And so our chances of their saying yes are minimal. Until we change our approach and until we present ourselves as someone here to assist them and help them so that their job is easier, they're just going to keep saying no.
Oh,
They've already dug in their heels.
But they've already said no. They all campaigned and said no CMP, that would be the first thing they did was to get rid of it.
Then you didn't listen to the session last time, because last time there was discussion on keeping elements of the CMP. They're clearly, yes, that was their initial stand, but I thought I heard in the last session, their session the other day, that there were several comments about keeping various elements of the CMP, about not throwing the whole thing away. We've made the investment. So they've opened the door. Ray, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that the realization of it is, and I certainly am not going to discount anything that you just said, Pam, because certainly the conciliatory way is the way to handle this, where we're bringing solutions. But I think the realization that all of these folks ran on dumping the CMP, if they don't dump the CMP and they think their amount of emails that they're getting now is tough, wait until they say, nah, we're going to keep the CMP, we're just going to modify it. I think what's going to happen is it's going to get dumped, but then portions of it worded a little bit differently are going to come back in because there's a lot of great pieces to it. So I think both of you, Clint and Pam, are correct that this is probably going to get tossed away, but we as an organization who know it intimately ought to be able to provide a service to the board to help them and answer any questions they have about portions of the CMP.
Mm-hmm. I see Roland raising your hand.
Yeah, so I'll go back to what I said. Yeah, we ought to approach them and say, okay, we're here to help you. We'd like to help you. Tell us how we can help you. Yeah, but we also, I think, need to mention that there are a number of areas that need to be retained. You've mentioned that, and here's what we think they should be, and where we should look. And if we don't recommend something, then I think we're wasting time.
Well, one of the things that I think would aid in a smooth transition, one thought I had was that instead of just terminating this committee just point blank, is I would like to see more of a sunsetting where we have a transition from what we are currently working on in the CMP, and assuming that the new finance and planning committee is going to take over the duties of strategic planning, then as we have identified these areas, then we can give them the pieces and parts, and then they can do whatever they want with them, and then we can sunset and over time so that we don't have a gap. I would think that would ease that, but I don't know if that's something that we would move forward with. Right now, we're just being a little bit proactive, trying to get ahead of it to see, the handwriting is on the wall of what's going to happen, and this is just one area that we've identified that potentially we should be prepared for. Are there other areas that we should be prepared for?
I just have a comment that, and that is that I think you've done your due diligence. You've worked for the last year trying to sort of get your arms around the plan and make recommendations where you saw fit, and then you asked the board for sort of consideration into that work as they move forward with their plans, their decisions as they move forward. And at this point, Nikki, I think the only really message to go back to the board is that this committee still stands ready to serve. You volunteered for a reason because you care about your committee, you care about this community in whatever capacity, and again, in whatever form this CMP strategic plan, whatever it does, morphs into. And so if they know that this group is still willing to work and willing to give of your time and energy, which is a gift. I mean, it is. You're not doing this for kicks. It's you're not getting paid well. Let's face it. So just telling them that you're stand at the ready to continue to work in whatever, as they move forward with whatever direction that they see fit. So I really think that's the message.
Okay. All right. Any others?
Well, how do we tell them? We write them an email or?
I can do that. I'm happy to, and I'll draft something and I can forward it to y'all for comment and feedback.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Works for me.
All right. So that's really all I had on it. Let's go around the room and take some final comments. I will go in the order that they are on my screen. Roland, you're first.
I'm fine. Nothing.
Ray?
I was glad to get a haircut.
I'm jealous.
Oh,
I haven't done it yet.
I need to say, how do you like my shaggy dog look?
It looks good on you. All right. Clint, are you there? I don't see Clint. He may have walked away. Pam?
Walked away.
Pam?
What? No,
No comments?
nope.
How about you, Jody?
I don't have any comments.
You're good to go?
I'm good to go.
All right. Tom?
Nope, nothing.
All right. I think I got everybody except for,
I
is
think
Clint?
you skipped Diane.
You didn't get Diane.
I skipped Diane. Okay, sorry.
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay. Stephanie?
Good.
You're good? Okay. When somebody talks, I've noticed that it shuffles the order, and that kind of screwed me up there. Okay, so if there is nothing else, then I don't see a reason to keep y'all going. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Rollin. I don't think we need a second. I think we can just say we're good to go. Y'all have a really good weekend and happy Mother's Day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You too.
And I'll keep you informed as news develops.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.